Hello, and welcome to Gardener's World. Today, we're going to do things just a little bit different. I'm off to see a very dear friend. Come in. We may know her as the Queen of Cakes, but today, Mary Berry will be sharing another of her great passions in life, gardening. Good morning.
Morning. Look at the day.
I know.
Lovely to welcome you, and look, the sun shines.
I brought it with me.
Well, I'm very excited that you're here.
I've got my tools.
I've got so many questions for you.
I thought I might have a few jobs as well.
I've thought up a few.
And who's this?
And this is little Freddie. We've two dogs. This is the one that stays in the garden with me.
Bless him. So can we go and have a look round?
Oh, come on then. I'll take you through.
Go on in, Freddie.
Let's start here.
Lovely. Coming up on today's special programme, Rachel visits a sustainable flower farm.
The first thought that comes to mind here is abundance. You've just got so much here, it looks so healthy.
Frances checks out some urban greening projects with garden designer Tom Massey.
This is sort of the poster child of urban greening,
This is creating corridors for pollinators to move through the city.
which in the centre of London is kind of astounding, really.
There was some homegrown produce on the menu when Joe visits the kitchen gardens at the Manoir Hotel.
Just look at this. It's beautiful, it's so lush, and it's all edible.
And I'll be getting stuck into a few jobs. I love the way you're saying to me, oh, they're not very good.
I know
So
they
look
won't
at
be
them.
tall, and actually you're lucky, but
Yeah, look at
sometimes I get,
those.
oh no, look at this one.
Yeah.
And that is a real feature.
Mary, you've been here, what, about 4 years?
4 years.
Yeah.
It's
So when it came to creating the garden, what's important to you?
the most important thing for me was to have colour and interest all the year round.
Yeah.
And so we have tulips and alstroemeria. And then the walls of the house are covered with wisteria, which is glorious. And then we get a second flowering.
Yeah.
I'm very keen on cutting back when something's flowered. I mean, we have some roses. We cut them down brutally and up
And
they
away
come
they
again.
come, yeah,
with a
which
bit
is-
of feed.
yeah.
I'm good on feeding.
which is, you know, your strong point,
My
really.
strong point.
I'd say Mary's pretty good at growing too. And it seems she started at an early age. Mary, I'm going to take you back a couple of years. From what I understand, you love the flowers, I know you do, but your first little business venture, wasn't that
Yeah.
something to do with cut flowers?
Well, you know, this was the war.
Yeah.
And Mum used to do the accounts for Dad in Bath on Fridays. So I would be at home. And so I thought, I could sell flowers, make a bit on the side. So I picked them and I bunched them up and I found some string. I didn't charge an awful lot, but I think I had about 3 shillings. Anyway, 1 o'clock, my parents came back. Dad said, that money must go to a charity. And I thought it was very mean and horrible parents, but I thought it was great fun.
I think...
And I think he was jolly hard on me.
So cut flowers, still really important to you?
Really important. And I usually pick them very first thing in the morning, and then I put them in cold water.
Yeah.
And then just before I put them in a vase, I cut them again, a diagonal cut. They give me such pleasure. When I've dumped my suitcase, if I've been away, almost before I think of a cup of coffee, I'm out just getting a few flowers.
Yeah.
These are Chandos Beauty, and they have a wonderful smell.
Yeah, look glorious, don't they?
They're cherished.
Yeah. When it comes to buying a bunch of flowers, we might not always consider the cost beyond the price tag. And sometimes it's not all that rosy. But there are sustainable alternatives out there, as Rachel found out.
We've all heard of pick your own fruit farms, but this is a cut your own flower field. The UK flower market is big business. The floristry industry is worth around £900 million, but only about 14% of cut flowers sold in the UK are actually grown here. We think nothing of buying cut flowers all year round, which is wonderful. But just think of those roses that we buy in February for Valentine's Day. It's highly unlikely that they've been growing happily through a cold British winter. And the carbon impact of these imported blooms can be enormous. A single stem grown and brought in from overseas can be responsible for 10 times the amount of CO2 as the equivalent British-grown flower. But there's an increasing number of small UK growers producing beautiful seasonal blooms. Helen and Paul Stickland of Blackshed Flowers began on a small scale, but they soon outgrew their allotment site and now grow on 2 acres of ex-dairy farm in the Dorset countryside. The first thought that comes to mind here is abundance. You've just got so much here, it looks so healthy. You've also got a very interesting mix of plants here, things I don't normally associate with cutting. You've got perennials, you've got some subshrubs even with the Perovskias.
I like to try everything, to be honest, but it turns out that perennials are so much better, and it's worth growing the species form of perennials as opposed to the hybrids, because on the whole they tend to be more delicate, a bit more resilient.
It's the delicacy and the feel and the way that we put arrangements together as well.
And we're looking for things which will survive extreme heat or extreme cold.
This Althea has caught my eye. It's so beautiful, and again, not something that you see in cut flower farms very much.
It is a fantastic plant. It's wiry, it's strong, it holds its flowers beautifully. You can imagine how that would really open up a bouquet or a big pedestal. It's a quality which a hybrid might not have.
And this would be so beautiful in a garden setting as well. And then you can steal a few stems to take them inside for the vase. When you're buying cut flowers from a shop, it can be very hard to tell what's gone into those flowers before they get to your vase in terms of pesticides, transportation and packaging, and that can all really add to the environmental impact. But with a pick your own bouquet, you can be sure of the provenance. And here, Paul and Helen don't use any pesticides, so you can pick as many as you like and take them home with you. You don't even need to have any packaging. The other thing I really love here is that you come across things that are very unusual, like this Rhaphidia columnifera. So it's a cone flower, and it's got these extraordinary shaped flowers where the petals dangle down. These are the ray florets, and then the actual little flowers that the pollinators go for are sort of in the middle there. And it's not something that would ever be grown in huge quantities. It's perhaps not to everyone's taste, but it's quirky and would make your bouquet extra special. And I also think it'd be great in the garden too. Nice sunny spot, something unusual like that, it's a winner. I've just spotted something else you're unlikely to see in the high street florist, this lovely dark oregano. Popular with the bees, but has this wonderful aromatic foliage, and herbs are excellent in cut flower bouquets because they give you that lovely fragrance. During the summer, Paul and Helen are harvesting every day. And though they don't grow as fast as annuals, perennials like these delphiniums can produce 2 flushes a year if you cut back after flowering. And when growing on this scale, sometimes a pair of secateurs just won't cut it. Even in late summer, these veronicastrums will have time to regrow from the most severe haircut. And the season doesn't end when the fields fade.
Wow. This is like an Aladdin's cave, isn't it?
It certainly is.
It's extraordinary, Helen. What's going on in here?
Well, this is our drying room. It's a converted grain silo.
It's perfect, isn't it?
It
What
is.
a good space. For those of us who haven't got a handy silo in the back garden, what's the best way of cutting and then drying your own flowers at home?
An airing cupboard is good. If not, if you've got a dark place, even temperature, air going through.
And is it important to hang them, to suspend them like that?
With most things, yes. It will keep the stem straight. You can put them in manageable bunches, and they just dry more effectively in their natural state.
It's exciting. You know, I have never dried them at home. I'm going to now. You've inspired me. Can we perhaps make an arrangement
Well,
together?
yes, of course, you're in for a treat.
And some of the things that we're using are obviously very familiar, but also you've got some quite unusual plants here. What is this sort of rather large plant here? It looks familiar.
Yes, it probably does. If anyone's got an allotment, they've probably got some of this on it. It's a dock.
Oh, yes. It is.
And it is one of our best weeds, but actually, you can use it in a dried flower arrangement. I'll just cut some small
It's
pieces
beautiful,
off for
isn't
you.
it? And who would have thought? You see, there is a value in everything.
Don't diss your docks.
Don't diss your dogs, no. It's so interesting working with the dried flowers as opposed to the fresh, because you have a completely different feel of that sort of ethereal
It's
softness.
a very different thing.
It really is, isn't it? But it's lovely. And actually you feel you can take your time.
Yeah.
Because you haven't got to quickly get them straight into water, so...
No, and that's the beauty of it.
Maybe some of the
Oh, some of that limonium, yes.
limonium
that's
would be nice.
Yes, it's sort of delicate, but it's tough as old boots.
I feel like that might be enough. I think any more might be too much. What do you
Yes,
think?
I think that's finished.
Pop it in. That's so much fun. See, it's the docks that make it.
It is, it absolutely is.
There's nothing more joyful than holding a bunch of flowers. And even better if they're fresh and seasonal. In this instance, it's like holding summer in my hands. And also, if you dry those flowers, you can extend summer all the way through the year, knowing that they haven't cost the earth.
I loved that silo where they were drying the flowers.
Oh, the dry flowers, and they hung them up by the stalks.
Only because I think it'll be a great place for a party.
You're a party boy.
Come on, Freddie. This is a lovely greenhouse. Right, Mary, gonna sow some seeds.
It looks as though you're rubbing fat into flour for pastry. I think you've got all the lumps out of there.
I have. That's the key, though. That's the key. So, you love your cuttings.
Well, I love cuttings because, you know, a cutting is quite easy. With seeds like antirrhinums, they are so tiny. And I don't like having yet another job to transplant them. So
Yeah.
can one do them in something like this?
That's what we're going to try and do.
Oh, good.
You say good. I'm going to be honest now. The last time I did these, I was an apprentice on a parks department in North Devon, and I was 17 years old. But let's work on the basis that I haven't forgot, all right? So the key with antirrhinums, you know, the snapdragons, is good contact with the soil. That's why I started to break it up. So first of all, if we just fill these individual pockets in the tray.
So this is a very fine soil.
Yeah, because what we're not going to do is we're not going to cover these seeds, because the moment you cover them, no light's going to get to the seed and they will not germinate. So once I've done that, simple tap, is just level that off.
And you haven't patted it down?
No, just a couple of little taps. A couple of little taps, that's all we're going to do. And I'll give it another little tap. And now, what we're going to try and do, even though they're small, see, when I said don't pat them down, You just pat it down.
It's what I do. So that's wrong. Give it another
No,
shake.
it's all right. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
It's a sort of natural thing.
It is a natural thing. It is. So the next thing we want to do is we're going to water those. Once these have sown, one thing we won't do is we won't water again from the top.
That's a good thing to remember, because if you put the seeds there and you water, they float all over the place.
Exactly that. Should we do half white and then half dark?
Okay.
Yeah.
And those are the bride.
These are the bride, yeah.
Royal bride.
Yeah, not any old bride. So the old trick that we used to do, take a white piece of paper. Look, you can instantly see them.
They are so small.
They are.
Now, do you put more than one
No,
in each?
all I need to do with this one, then you won't have to worry about pricking out
Only
at
one?
all. Yeah. And I can feel myself slightly sort of freezing, trying not to flick them anywhere that I shouldn't, but there you go. There must be something in the baking world that is this fiddly, isn't there?
When you're finishing things, sometimes it's
Yeah,
sort of
I-
precision.
yeah.
But when somebody says they've made a cake and it's taken them 3 weeks to ice it, I think I'd rather be in the garden. I do not pipe all over cakes and things. Life's too short.
It certainly is. The other way you could do this is just put some out, a little cocktail stick, some
I have
water.
plenty of those.
Yeah, I bet you do. Water, just dip it in the water, damp the end of the cocktail stick, pick one seed up at the time.
I want to have a go doing that.
Do you know-
You shouldn't tell me about things if you don't want me to try.
I knew the moment you smiled when I said cocktail stick.
No, it's just that it seems to be slightly easier than trying to... Well, we'll see.
Go on, you go and get the cocktail stick.
All right, I
Go
won't
on,
be a
go on,
minute.
give it a go, give it a go. So, take a moment, we'll just wait for Mary to come back with the cocktail sticks.
No, it's not gin, it's water.
You know, not that I don't trust you.
Well, it's pretty warm.
That's
right,
good.
So I brought some cocktails.
That is water.
Right.
So all you want to do is dip the end, just so the end of the cocktail stick is damp, and all you're going to do is should just be able to dab one of them. There we go.
Look at that.
Hey.
You can see it against
It's good,
there.
isn't it?
That's more my scene. Where am I
And
putting
it just
it?
in the centre
And
there.
on the top?
Just a little wipe.
There we are.
No, I haven't grown these since.
magic.
It is magic.
How long will they take to germinate?
I think these, somewhere like this, between 10 days to 2 weeks. But the key now is not really to water, as long as they don't. What you don't want them to dry out, but ultimately you don't want them to be too wet. So,
Would you
so
put
keep an
a
eye on
cover
them.
on top?
In here, I wouldn't. You know, maybe if it was on a windowsill inside, I might just sort of put a little bit of clear plastic over.
I can't spell antirrhinum
Well,
or
there you
put
go.
snapdragon.
Yeah, or even just
I
put
could.
Royal Bride. So you're a Royal Bride, and at this end, I'm a Cherry Cola.
There we are. A lot of concentration. Well, I'm very proud of that.
There we
Thank
go.
you very much.
Well, hopefully they'll come up. If not, no doubt when you see me at some point, you will
don't
tell
you
me.
worry, I will.
I know you will. Come on, Freddie.
There's a good boy.
Come on, boy. Come on. We all know that plants provide so many benefits, but not just to us as human beings, the environment too. That's especially important in our towns and cities. So much so that the government plans to make more than half of London green by 2050. Francis checked out some recent projects.
With so much pressure on land for development, there are fewer opportunities than ever to create traditional parks and nature reserves. The idea of urban greening is to create green corridors through the otherwise built-up areas of our cities. And of course, as well as looking nice, well thought out planting is great for biodiversity, as well as having lots of other environmental benefits. The Barbican in central London is known for its brutalist architecture. But beyond the hard exterior is a soft centre, a beautiful planting scheme. I've never been here before, but award-winning garden designer Tom Massey lives in the city. Like me, he feels passionately about turning more grey areas green and keeps an eye on the different projects across the capital. So this is the beach garden created by Nigel Donnett at the Barbican Centre, and it's sort of the poster child of urban greening. But do you remember this before it was done?
No, I do actually. I used to come to the Barbican as a child. This is kind of more what it will look like. So very municipal, you know, mown, borders of lawn, less biodiversity, fewer species. This is much more inspired by a natural landscape. So the plants here are much more drought tolerant. They're able to cope with this, you know, really exposed, really sunny, often quite windy conditions. You can see it's absolutely baked by the sun here as well. I mean, it looks pretty happy, doesn't it? And there's no irrigation at all. And it's also full of insects. So this is creating corridors for wildlife, corridors for pollinators to move through the city.
Which in the centre of London is kind of astounding, really.
Yeah.
It's nice, really, really nice. The lovely thing about this as well is there's self-seeders everywhere. You've got verbena, lichness, which do tend to do that. But it's really nice to leave them and sort of let this whole scheme almost dictate itself over the years.
Just creates this ever-changing tapestry of planting. Every time I come here, it looks slightly different.
Shall we go and look at the rest of it?
Go and explore.
This is the shrub section of the garden, and it has really similar planting to the sunny baked areas, but with the addition of shrubs and multi-stem trees. And they have lots of benefits. So they give structure all year round, and a lot of these, like the cherry and the amelanchier, have amazing autumn colour, so seasonal interest that varies, and also flowering times that vary. So early blossoms, and then potentilla, things like that will flower much later, so a lot more for the different wildlife that comes, and even the potential of nesting spaces too.
So this area of the garden, this is much more peaceful, a bit quieter. To me, this is very evocative of a woodland edge. This is a kind of amplified, enhanced version. You've got these huge sweeps of Japanese anemones, you've got the multi-stem trees and the shrubs erupting up through the planting. It really feels inviting and makes you want to get inside and explore. So coming around the corner into this space, the atmosphere changes again. You've got the shade of the trees, the sound of the water really masks the sounds of the city. But this planting is also providing environmental services too. So the trees are capturing carbon, they're drawing it from the air. They're also providing shade. And as water is released from their leaves, as the sun hits them, it cools the air. So this space feels a lot cooler, it feels a lot more secluded. It's just such a nice place to sit for residents to come and have a quiet moment.
So Fred, you live here. What's it like living somewhere like this?
I mean, we're just so lucky. The idea of it is so good and so ahead of its time, the climate resilience.
Just standing here, listening to you speaking and watching all these butterflies flying around behind you. It's quite amazing.
Yeah, we're just so lucky. We've got bees, butterflies, birds. It's not just for Barbican residents.
No.
It's for biodiversity, greening, and, you know, it's just the way it's got to be.
Lizzie, what do you think of this? It must be a real pleasure to live here.
I'm sure some people wonder why on earth you live in a concrete monstrosity, but actually, A, we love it, and B, we've got things like this. You know, the residents do like almost promenade around, and they come and walk through the gardens and sit down, and it's an absolute pleasure. And it was wonderful that they had the vision, I think, to change the planting scheme to what we have now. I love the fact that it's in the city of London. You know, it's almost something you wouldn't expect here.
Yeah.
It'd be very difficult to leave, I have to say. Just wish it was closer to a beach.
Yeah. Well, these are the beach gardens, aren't they? So.
Good point.
The Barbican may have led the way, but it's great to see innovative design making an impact in other areas of the city too. This garden in West London, designed by Kevin Barton, is set between a school and 2 playgrounds and has won several awards for its positive impact on the area.
So this is Bridget Joyce Square, and apparently it used to be an incredibly busy road that was very prone to flooding. And look at this. It's a rainwater harvesting system.
Yeah, it's really cool, isn't it? I guess the water comes off the roof into this, and then it comes along this sweeping channel down that chain and then lands into this planting here.
Now, obviously, we talk a lot about drought, which we do have more of, but then we get these huge amounts of rainfall that are unpredictable.
Yeah.
And this would be able to absorb that.
Yeah, massive influxes of rainwater into our sewers is what causes discharge of sewage into our rivers and our oceans. This is going to really slow the flow of the water.
Even things like front gardens where we've paved over them to park our cars and things. That's terrible for stormwater, whereas permeable paving is just one small solution as well.
Yeah.
And also, these are really beautiful features. And imagine coming into school in the morning, there's another one over there as well, and seeing them, or more importantly, coming out of school maybe in the evening.
And just seeing all this amazing planting to, to run through, particularly that wall that sweeps through that planting. I'd love to run along that.
Yeah, should we go and have a look?
Yeah.
This is so fun, isn't it?
Yeah,
I would have
it's
totally run along this wall.
I would be, on my scooter all the way down.
On your scooter?
Or bike, maybe.
Brave.
But this, the way you're up in the canopy of the trees, the grasses look amazing with light moving through.
They've kept it so simple, but it's actually doing quite complicated work, isn't it?
Let's have a closer look. So you've got these channels that run along the upper level, and then they discharge here with these ducts. And then you've got ridges and troughs.
Yeah.
So this is where water will capture, and you've got these kind of deeper depressions where water will sit and will percolate into the landscape.
So in the winter, this will be really filling with water, really watering deeply these plants so they get nice deep roots, and that makes them more resilient for droughts when they do come, which is more regularly now.
Yeah, we spend so much money watering our gardens, but rainwater is just a free resource that you can just capture in all these clever and really quite simple ways.
The garden is maintained by Hammersmith Community Garden Association. Katie Shaw is their operations manager.
How have you seen that having this has benefited the community?
People are walking to school a lot more. A lot of kids are learning to ride their bike here. And actually, because the road's gone, there's more space for the parents to hang out and chat. The community's building because of having that space. And it's so crucial for both the people and the wildlife to have this little bit of extra nature. It's definitely part of a green corridor that's emerging, because we have a community garden about 30 seconds that way, and we're taking on a lot more planting for the council. The council are really changing their planting for both biodiversity and for the urban drainage problems that they've got around here.
That is really amazing that you're creating all of these green corridors around central London.
In North London, the King's Cross area is one of London's largest redevelopments. Here, designer Dan Pearson has used low-maintenance perennial plants that are both ornamental and edible to transform an underused industrial site into a lush green neighbourhood. Now, more than 40% of the area is rich with natural life.
It's really lovely, isn't it, seeing how much potential there is in what could be barren concrete jungle.
This amazing biodiversity, this really immersive, almost wild-feeling planting, and just the way it's connected people living here and given them something to be proud of.
Yeah, and thank goodness it's becoming just an integral part of urban planning now, rather than an afterthought, which it's always been before.
Yeah.
For me, that importance that we're now starting to put into our cities with green space, it's got to be something we've got to do.
And that's right in the middle of London.
Yeah.
And what I like is all the plants are perennials. They all grow into each other, and of course they're low maintenance.
Yeah.
And they've solved the problem of water.
Yeah, but also doing that in an attractive way. It's the ultimate right plant, right place, but don't lose the precious rainfall.
And also, you're in the city, the rush and the hustle. You walk through those plants, your worries, they leave you, and you feel rested.
Yeah.
It's a real bonus.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that was lovely, but there is still loads to come. Do you want to do the honours?
Here's a taste of what's to come on today's programme.
Joe meets the gardeners at one of the country's finest kitchen gardens.
So this is the Chioggia.
It's a beautiful thing,
Yeah,
I can see that.
It's a fantastic beetroot. Has an absolutely fantastic colouring in it.
Wow.
And Nick visits a garden with an amazing collection of roses.
This is Just Joey, which is a favourite.
I mean, I have to say, this was the rose when I was a teenager working
Oh,
at
really?
a rose nursery. It had appeared and everybody wanted it, and it's just as popular today.
Mary, I once read roses were your biggest extravagance.
I think they're my greatest love. other than my husband, Thame. We had these before we moved, and they're Chandos Beauty. They're bred in England, a pure English rose, and they're repeat flowering. My husband deadheads all through the summer. He's out twice a day with his trug. I think it's to get away from me and have a bit of peace, but in November they're cut down, but, you know, sort of to about that. And then in March they're cut really low down, and they shoot up again. This was particularly good this year. This is the second flowering.
Yeah, I mean, they look incredibly healthy. That first prune would reduce wind rock because roses actually like sheltered positions, and then that second prune would be a little bit later on.
They have the most amazing foliage, dark green foliage. They're very healthy, they're disease-free, and come on, smell this.
I know.
10 out of 10 for smell.
The perfume is incredible. The scent holds in the air, so when you're on the terrace just enjoying a moment.
Those few days you can be outside having your supper, you can really smell the roses. They're my other babies. My children have flown the nest.
So these are
my babies.
They're lovely. You love your roses, so I now think you should tell everybody where Nick has gone to visit.
Well, he's gone down to Dorchester to a very special garden with masses of roses where they really do take centre stage.
This enchanting garden is absolutely loaded up with allure. As you come up the drive, you get that initial hint of the building, which kind of draws your attention. Overhead is this piece of pleached hedging, and then down below is the boxes. And it really creates this frame or this window, this view into the garden. And it's just kind of saying, come and have a look at me. Come and explore. Well, this space certainly doesn't disappoint. It's drawn me in and it's absolutely delivered. Just notice the pale pink rose back there, which I think is a great kind of entry into this space. And then, in contrast to the heavy topiary, are the pieces of herbaceous plants through this gravel. So things like the cephalaria just here have this kind of light, ephemeral quality to them. You can see through. And then the roses, they've of course got much larger blooms, and they're the sort of wow-pow element of the planting, which feels beautiful. Coming away from the house terrace, this central section of the garden really kind of embraces you, and it does a brilliant transition into the landscape around it. And then the wow that's really kind of pulled me into this space is this rose. It's absolute beauty. It's called Lichfield Angel. It's very, very smooth stemmed, and it starts out life slightly peachy pink note, but as it fully opens out, it moves to this kind of delicious creamy tone.
The gardens here at the Old Rectory are Emily Cave's pride and joy. She grew up admiring her parents' roses, and as a child, loved to spend time deadheading with her grandmother. Her roses spill out beyond the boundaries of the formal garden into a field of 350 different varieties that she grows for cutting.
Emily, it has to be said, this is clearly a major passion for you. This is a lot of roses. What are your favourites?
Just Joey, just behind you, is a favourite. Irish Hope is another good rose, that pale yellow which goes white. Some of these roses begin a little bit of a stronger hue and then gradually tone down.
And then in terms of harvesting the rose and kind of making the most of them, what do you think about the ideas of supplementing the water with lemonade or feeds? Does it make much difference?
Well, I haven't done it. Some people say yes, and sugar and whatever, but I like to cut and then put them in straight into water. But I would advise that you change the water on the second day, and so it's just topped up and refreshed.
I notice in the garden and in your cutting patch here, you've got a lot of kind of pale or peachy tones. I have to say, I'm so drawn to this Tuscany Superb. It's so kind of rich and saturated. There's something particularly lovely about the sort of deep tones to these petals, and then that very kind of distinct yellow centre.
It's a very popular colour, but I do find sort of mid-season now with the heat, it tends to sort of dry rather quicker on the stem than some of the paler ones.
I wonder, is that something to do with the fact that it's got a really deep pigment, therefore it's absorbing loads of sunlight and that finishes it off more quickly?
Well, I think I'll say yes. So, Nick, this is Just Joey, which is a favourite, particularly here, because you can see the bud and then just opening and then the fully blown head.
I mean, I have to say, it's testament to this rose that this was the rose when I was a teenager working at a rose nursery. It had appeared and everybody wanted it, and it's just as popular today, right?
Yeah, it's really sort of showy, and in the autumn it's great because it's a sort of the seasonal colour.
If somebody's only got a really small space, then something like this that can give them a full season of bloom and be relatively healthy is a good choice.
You get value for money.
A long-flowering rose is something to really cherish. But when any flower finally fades, consider having something in the wings, ready to take the spotlight.
Climbing roses are a fantastic way of flanking walls or disguising perhaps buildings you don't really want to see, like in this instance. Now, climbing roses tend to have a flush at the start of the season, then a bit of a gap and a flush at the end. And so one way that you can ensure you've got interesting ongoing colour with a plant like this is to introduce a second species. Here is a perennial sweet pea. You could equally do it with annual climbers, and it's going to make its way up through the lower stems of the rose and really fill in that colour gap when the rose isn't producing blooms itself.
Back in the formal garden, Emily has given real thought to combining roses with the right supporting cast.
Just discovered this little gravel path that makes its way through this wider border. It works brilliantly because it gets you up close and personal with the plants. It also makes maintenance a lot easier. Now, obviously, roses abound through here, and of course, they're gross feeders, meaning they take a lot of nutrition from the soil, and therefore the plants that you choose to grow around them need to be able to cope with that relatively low nutrition. And so through the front of this border is a fabulous foil of different herbaceous species. So it starts out with this salvia purple rain down at the bottom. It then moves on to Alchemilla mollis, and that lovely kind of lime chartreuse makes a beautiful colour association. And then finally, the contrast of the silver foliage of the stachys provides ground cover, lovely colour associations with the rose, and they can really cope growing in those conditions.
Away from the formality of the lawns, the landscape changes. Among the tree canopies, one rose really has the right to roam.
Look at this absolute beauty. Now, in contrast to climbing roses, which are relatively small and compact, if you've got a big space, then you can get away with growing one of these. This, of course, is a rambler, and it's called Wedding Day. And you can see here it's made its way over the top of this pergola and then probably 5 metres already up into this tree stump. There's masses of clusters of those white blooms. They, of course, become hips going into autumn, and you've just got this fantastically rampant vine taking over your garden. It looks brilliant. Now, I couldn't come to a well-known rose garden without admiring Rosa Mary Berry. I think this rose is particularly fitting here at the Old Rectory because it's got those sort of paled down pastel tones, which is really the theme of the roses running through the whole plot. And so this sort of slightly creamy note with a hint of ivory, I just think fits in beautifully. So if you're looking for a long flowering rose with great scent, looks pretty healthy too, then I reckon this is one to go for.
What a beautiful garden that was, wasn't it?
Wasn't it just Emily? She's a rose enthusiast.
Yes, but also, talking about rose enthusiasts, it must have been lovely when you get a rose named after yourself.
I was very honoured. How could I say no?
Exactly. as well as flowers. I mean, obviously edibles are really important to you, aren't they?
Well, this is at the end. I've got 1 or 2 carrots here, and you will see I am not a perfect carrot grower, but you know, they grow very, very well here because they're high up and the carrot fly doesn't get at them.
I love the way you're saying to me, oh, they're not very good.
Well, they're not, I know
like,
they
look
won't
at them.
be tall and... actually, you're lucky, but
yeah, look
sometimes
at
I get, oh no, look at this one.
Yeah,
I mean, that is a real
look.
feature. I often cook them whole so that people can laugh when they eat
Yeah,
them.
when they eat them, which is brilliant.
And also I've got beetroot here, but they're so easy to grow.
Yeah.
To cook them, you cut them off there so they don't
Yeah.
bleed into the water.
Yep.
Boil them till they're just tender. Skin comes off easy winky, and then slice them with sugar, vinegar, pepper and salt. It's my snack. I've got a banana shallot over there. Yeah, can you get me one? I want one for tonight.
They look really good. That's
The
lovely.
reason why I grow those, rather than the little ones, they're much easier to slice and chop up.
Fantastic.
There we are.
Tell you what, your strawberries look fantastic. What's your favourite strawberry?
Garriette.
Is it?
They are so full of flavour. They haven't been quite so good this year, and I want to take the runners.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, there's one. Grab me a pot, and if you've got a little bit of wire.
Yeah. I'll go and see what I can do.
See what you can find. Cool. There you go. This is so easy. Just using the runners to create the next stock of plants. And
they're free.
They are free, which is definitely a good thing. So all you're doing is where that runner is, pot of compost, push the wire down just to hold it in place, drop of water, and probably within 2 or 3 weeks, that'll be rooted. Then you can cut it, take it away, grow it on. Not only is it very simple, but it's sort of magical. The idea you just plug it and something else grows, you know. And
I love growing. It's so exciting. In another life, I could certainly have been a gardener, but on the other hand, I have so much to learn.
what about you? How did you get into gardening?
Dad grew things because we needed the food. And also, we used to play outside.
Yeah.
You know, we had our dens, we played, we had picnics, and we used to go foraging.
Yeah.
We always used to get masses of blackberries, and Mum would come home and make blackberry and apple jam.
Also, with the foraging, you've carried that on, haven't you?
Oh,
with your
I
kids?
certainly have.
And, you know, to pick up some free food on the way.
Free food
It's
on the
always a
way
bonus, isn't it?
It is a bonus.
These two are lovely, aren't they?
They're taken to you.
I feel like I've got two new friends. Eh? Gorgeous. When it comes to growing edibles, there's a garden in Oxfordshire bursting with top-notch fruit and veg. Joe went to meet the kitchen gardeners there.
The Manoir aux Quatre Saisons is home to a Michelin-starred restaurant run by chef Raymond Blanc.
Just look at this. It's beautiful, it's so lush, and it's all edible.
It's no surprise that the gardens here are full of the freshest ingredients.
Now, I haven't been here for many years, but I love the way they're always experimenting with either what they grow or how they grow it. But just look at these tomatoes. There's a simple willow frame, strings dangling down, and tomatoes growing up them. It's brilliant.
There are 90 different crops of salad and veg grown here, all organically and with sustainability at the forefront. John Driscoll is head of the veg gardens.
John, the gardens look absolutely amazing. You've got some varieties that I recognise, but there's some things I'm not too familiar with. Now, I spotted this one earlier, and it looks familiar, but I can't remember what it is.
The yakon. Yeah, this is one of the plants that we now grow quite a lot of.
I think that's why I didn't recognise it. I've seen it in an allotment before as a single plant, but I've never seen a mass of them like this. And it's not the leaves that are eaten, it's the roots.
Yeah, it's very similar to a dahlia. I mean, you have the crown. Inside the crown, you've got these really large tubers that are developing in there. They've got this fantastic sort of mild apple, sweet apple flavour, but they also have this really amazing texture of a water chestnut. So they've got this really nice crunch to it.
OK, so you dig it up. At what time?
Yeah, so it's usually around the middle of October, usually once we've had the first frost coming in. They start to develop the tubers actually quite late in their season, so you want to try and leave it as late as possible. And then, yeah, usually around the middle of October, we'll just cut the whole thing down, lift out the crowns, take off all of the bigger tubers, and then we'll pop these crowns back up and they'll go into one of the tunnels. They need a frost-free environment through winter. Again, very similar to a dahlia.
OK. But not all of them, because some of them are going to the kitchen.
Most of them are going to go to the kitchen. It's only the smaller ones, really, that will stay on the crown.
Now, I know this one, Vietnamese coriander.
Oh, yeah, it's a fantastic aromatic herb. I mean, it does split people 50-50. Especially raw, because it has a slightly soapy flavour to it. It's raw, but yeah, as soon as you get it into those hot liquids and things, it releases those amazing aromats into it.
Do you plant it out every year, this?
We do. We lift all of this when we're just coming up into frosty conditions, but we also take a lot of cuttings. So yeah, we'll just take these, take off some of the bottom parts of the leaves, drop this in some water until you start to see some root development, and then we'll just pop those on, and then yeah, just hold those through winter. So we make sure we've got enough plants for the next year.
Now, all the plants in this garden look so healthy. Some of you might think that they've been chemically fed or are on steroids. But no, this is a fully organic working garden. And a big part of that is this sort of thing. This is companion planting. So planting flowers alongside fruit and veg. And these three plants are doing a great job. Here we've got calendula, we've got borage, and we've got these garlic chives as well. And for a start, they are covered in pollinators, hoverflies and bees that are pollinating all the plants out there. But they're also bringing in things like ladybirds as well, and ladybirds predate on aphids, so they're keeping the aphid population down. They're covering the soil, which is great because bare soil just leads to evaporation. And also, with these three plants, you can eat them too, so they can be used in the kitchen. Clever, isn't it?
This planting tactic helps maximise the amount of produce available to the kitchen, which is just as well as every dish in the restaurant must include 3 items from the garden, and variety is key.
So this is the Chioggia.
It's a beautiful thing, I can see that.
It's a fantastic beetroot. I mean, it's from a region near Venice. It's an really nice old heritage variety as well, but for the kitchen, it has an absolutely fantastic colouring in it.
Wow.
So you get these really nice, I mean, in the kitchen they call it candied beetroot, because it's got that really amazing difference in the coloured rings that are in there that are actually formed each lunar cycle. And they do a lot of pickling with these. They cut them very, very thin, they punch them out into either shapes or things they can use on dishes.
You know, you grow the stuff, but then you get to see what is possible, the art of the possible with these vegetables as well. And not just for eating, but visually as well, because
exactly.
That's all part of it.
Yeah, it's the reason why I'm here. It's knowing that what we're doing here is actually going up to some of the best chefs in the world, and all the experimenting and things as well. It makes it very, very interesting.
Of course, it's not just veg that's championed here. The orchard is the latest chapter in Le Manoir's gardens. At only 11 years old, it's relatively young, but its 2,500 trees grow 153 different varieties of apples. And Paula Fleming really knows her coxes from her pippins.
This is some orchard, isn't it?
It is, yes.
There's a serious amount of trees and dripping with fruit at the moment.
And it's not just any fruit. Le Manoir's orchard specialises in heritage varieties.
I've seen quite a lot of French variety. I mean, look here.
Yes.
Pear Burhardy, late September, Boulogne, France, 1820.
Yes.
This is like a library of fruit trees.
Yes.
You've got a lot of heritage varieties
Yes.
here. Explain exactly what that means.
OK, so some of these are very old and rare. Some aren't so old and so rare, but maybe they don't store so well, or maybe they don't taste very nice. Simple as that.
So why grow them?
Because we want to keep that heritage alive, and it would be a shame to miss out. The other reason is that some of these have attributes that might be important in future breeding programmes in terms of, say, climate change and things like that, to ensure we still get the crunchy, crisp apple we expect to get.
It's not just the varieties that are being preserved, but also their stories. Like the humbug pear from Ukraine, with its unique stripes traditionally stored over winter and eaten at Easter. Or the Blenheim orange apple, found growing as a seedling in Blenheim Palace in the 1740s. But now a taste for the future. And Paula has plumped for an apple found in a Worcestershire garden in 2011.
This is rosette.
Oh.
It's a very deep red.
Wow.
It has that rosette of white and pink around the core.
Well, I feel terrible biting into it, but here goes. It's a nice apple, delicious. And I guess it's only 10, 11 years old. It could be a future heritage apple.
Exactly that, and we've almost come full circle. So we have our old varieties in the heritage section, and now we have the new one.
So Mary wants to change this little central feature here. Put some herbs in so everything in here is edible. But ultimately as well, the banana needs to go in the greenhouse now.
So you're doing a bit of replanting?
You know, Joe has been walking around that kitchen garden and he thought that was good. That is going to be nothing on your central feature time we've finished.
What have you got in mind?
Well, I'll tell you after you tell me what have you got tinfoil for?
I'll show you. I like to keep chives because as the winter comes, they die down, and I want to have the last cutting in my freezer.
You go and show people how to do that and I'll finish this off and then we'll carry on.
Okay. So I've got a lovely bunch of chives here. Just take an elastic band and put one there. Just wrap it in foil. And then when it's absolutely frozen solid and is really crisp, you then just lie it on a board and cut with a sharp knife, then use the chives and put this back in the freezer still frozen, and it'll be all crisp. So back in the freezer once you've taken the first lot.
I love that idea, but don't stop. Just keep going through those herbs because I'd love to know what to do with the rest of them.
Well, I use thyme a lot. You want to take it off the stalk and don't pull it down the way it's growing. You hold the end and it'll come off in pieces like
Pull it
that.
against the
if
growth.
If you buy thyme, it's not so strong, and you try to pull it off the stem, it's too soft.
It just snaps.
But this is grown for a whole season. Now the basil, I grow the seeds and then when I want it, take it back to about there, and then with any luck, from where you've taken it from, it will shoot out again. But I should, and I haven't, I should take all these flowering tops off because then it'll shoot out. What are you up to over here?
I've taken those ones out, but they'll be good in the greenhouse for next year. I've cut them back so far, but what I would do is when we get to sort of next spring, just as they start to shoot,
Oh, I'll call you. You can come and help me.
I will. I'll be back most weeks now, won't I? You said you wanted to make all this edible, so this is the rosemary.
That could go in the middle, wouldn't it? Giving us a bit of height.
So, should we go in the middle or should we go wild and go just off centre?
I would have thought that it should be in the middle because that would give us a bit of height.
I'm a bit wild, me.
I know you are, but I quite like it in the middle.
We'll go with what you suggest.
Have we got, yes, I see some lemon thyme, and
Yeah,
you've
lemon
got
thyme.
some broadleaf thyme there.
So we've got broadleaf thyme, some oregano. There we go, that's not complicated, is it?
That looks really good.
Yeah. If the whole cooking lark goes horribly wrong, maybe you can come and work with me. We do a little bit of garden design.
I'm not so good on the design. I always need a little bit of help on that.
Because I'm in someone else's garden, I'm cleaning up as I go along.
I'm very impressed.
This is the icing on the cake. But I think gravel, especially for herby things, works twofold, because not only does it bring these plants alive, but if we have a wet winter, it just keeps this foliage off the wet soil,
It
damping
stops
off.
weeds too, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it does stop weeds, yeah. There you go.
That really does look great. And that grit shows off the plants, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If I'd been doing that by myself, I'd have put them too close together, and you've left room for growth.
So what I'm going to do now is give that some water. Doesn't need a load, to be
That
fair.
looks
Just settle
lovely.
that compost in around the roots. There we go. What do you think?
I think that's so beautifully planted, and I can see that when I'm coming to the greenhouse, just taking a little bit of that time, popping it into an omelette for supper, it's just lovely.
I'm pleased you like it. Do you think I've earned a cup of tea?
I think you have. Come on.
I'll clear up. You put the kettle on.
Okay.
Go on. Thank you.
I hope you're ready for a well-earned cup of tea. Come and sit down.
Oh, dear.
Come and sit down.
Wow.
That was fun.
Have you enjoyed it?
I've enjoyed every moment, and I've learnt so much. You know, the little tips that you give me. I'm waiting for you to tell me what I've got to do at the weekend. I think I'm going to put my feet up.
Exactly.
Right, piece of cake?
Yeah, oh, that'll be lovely. Oh, wow.
How does that look then?
That looks absolutely awesome. That is wonderful. In fact, I don't think I'm going home. I think I want to stay.
There's lots for you to do here, I can tell you.
Don't worry, I'll stay. You feed me cake. That's fine. But I'm afraid that's it from us. Next week, Monty will be back at Longmeadow with a distinctly festive feel.
For most of us, holly with a cluster of bright red berries is as much part of Christmas as a Christmas tree.
What I want to do is make a couple of wreaths. One that's all with seed heads, different stuff that I've collected all around the garden. And then the other one, I want it to be full of berries.
The evergreens here at Cressy Hall have a magic all of their own, without the need for a single bauble or bow.
It doesn't get any better than it is here.
In the meantime, look after yourselves.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.